Thank you for joining us, everyone, for another episode of Live by Heart
Today
with your hosts, Dawn Spiegelberg and Wendy R. Wolf.
Hello and welcome to the Live by Heart Today show. This is a show designed to help you navigate change, uncertainty, and the new world we found ourselves living in. We'll talk a little bit about science. We'll talk a little bit about how our body works. We'll talk a little bit about intuition, and we'll talk a lot about transformation. Today, our theme is foundation, and with me for the Heart to Heart is my co-host, Wendy, the Professional Transformation Facilitator. Hi, Wendy.
Hi. So glad to play together.
I love it. Let's talk about foundation. And I'm going to jump in and talk about foundation by first saying that everybody knows about Maslow's hierarchy of need. So his hierarchy of needs starts with physiological needs. That includes air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, right? All the basics and basics. Here's another one that one of my mentors shared with me, and that is not on Maslow's list, but what is it that people need in order to get clothing? What is it that they need to get food? Because people don't grow their own food, maybe some of it, but not all of it, right? People don't make their own clothes. So what do they need in order to get those things? Money. So right along with his physiological needs, I believe money is a big foundational need in today's day and age. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, for us, money is the things that you're talking about. It's how we do it. In the old days, it might have been, hunting and gathering, but now it comes down to money. Yeah.
Yeah, so hunter and gather, and then it was barter, right? I would give you my eggs and you would give me milk from your cows. But we don't have much of that. There's some, right? It still exists. But right now, the universal currency is money.
Yes.
So with regard to foundation, our foundation has been shaken. What have you noticed with regard to the people around you and their sense of security and foundation?
I'm really, really excited to talk about this topic because I am experiencing many people being really shaken. Surprisingly, a sense of safety and security, sense of access. I mean, we see it with, runs on the store for toilet paper and food and water and all these things, right? Access to our basic needs and also access to people that we care about. All this is really shaking people more than I think anyone would expect.
Yeah, so the things that you listed are the foundational items from Maslow's pyramid,
Yeah.
right? So we're shaken because the regular supply of things is not as accessible to us as it used to be. People may have shelter, but other people may not have shelter, right? So we're seeing a lot of people whose just basic needs aren't being met. Sleep is a physiological need, and we know if people are stressed, they're not getting sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I found in some of the circles I've been in lately that people are still really fearful. They don't know what to do and how to be, and they don't know if they're going to make it or not. And just that uncertainty is unsettling. So let's talk about, now that we've set the stage and described what people are experiencing, let's talk about how to develop a strong foundation so that no matter which way the wind blows, no matter whether the COVID-19 ends at the end of April or not, people have the tools to be resilient. of course, I would say living by heart is a tool that keeps you resilient. And how does living by heart help you? It allows you to experience harmony between your brain and your heart. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand the role that the heart plays in our lives. So perhaps we could talk about the role that the heart plays in establishing a strong foundation.
Yes, please go ahead.
You want me to talk about it? I was hoping you would jump in.
Oh, I can, but you have so much to say about this. So
go. Well,
go.
I can talk about it physiologically. I'll mention the heart has 40,000 neurons, which is its own brain, and a lot of people don't know that. So we have a heart intelligence that's an intelligence just like the intelligence we have in our head, but it's not being leveraged. And so one way people can leverage their heart knowing is when we stop and listen carefully to what someone else is saying. So in basic communication, if we just stop and listen attentively, that allows our heart to be open and it allows another person to be heard. And, that's in all the circles. That's in all the, what's the conversations, the difficult conversation trainings that they have.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about listen to the other person and don't jump in and interrupt. Right. Let them be heard.
Communication 101.
Yes. Communication 101. And that's one way to open your heart space, right? That's one way to be available. Except when people's foundation is shaken, they can't open their heart because they don't know, whether they're going to have enough toilet paper and enough money and enough, where's their shelter coming from, and who's going to deliver food if they can't go to the grocery store, and when are they going to go back to work, right? So opening your heart isn't an option when you're frustrated and fearful.
Yeah. And this gets to one of my favorite subjects is allowing us to have support within, foundations within us, so that, yes, it's wonderful to be able to get things outside kind of however we can. But from my perspective, that's icing on the cake. And for me, the cake, it helps when I can find the cake within, when I can have the foundations within for things like safety and belonging, and all the way up to experiencing connection and oneness. It really helps me when I can find that within. And the first time I really learned this was it was about 15 years ago, and I had a big disturbance. We'll talk about this more, I'm sure, in my relationship. And I really got that I was looking for something outside, and I was like, trust was an issue. And it was like, trust is not about outside. It's about inside. And once I got that, then I could live in trust inside, regardless of what happened outside. And that really was a big turn for me and my relationship. And, it was right at the beginning of my ministry. It's something I had to learn. And so same thing with safety. It's like on the outside, we look around and things are chaos. Really, there's a lot of going on out there.
Absolutely.
And that's okay.
Chaos. Yeah.
It's like, can it be okay that that's happening? Because inside I'm not falling forever. There's actually a ground for me to stand on within. And a lot of us don't have that, a rock to stand on within. And that's what I'm passionate about.
It's true. I think back to our show about stillness, and I see that as the foundation, right? Having a quiet, peaceful stillness inside allows the foundation to be strong. And what kinds of practices do you put in place to be comfortable looking inward? So for me, it's drinking tea. Mm-hmm. What about you?
It's the inner tools that I'm so excited about and passionate about using and sharing.
So name one.
allowing myself to notice that I'm here on the earth and I won't blow away. That gravity's actually working and I'm connected to the earth and my body belongs here.
So you're describing what sounds to me like actually being in your body and participating actively in the fact that you're a human being having a physical experience.
Yes.
And there's also spiritual aspects, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
living
That
in the
in my
body.
soul, I'm like, I can connect with the earth and notice that we're one and that I belong here. And that that really helps me feel safe and belonging. And it builds from there. So that's just one of the foundational tool that I use, because then once I'm safe enough and comfortable enough and belonging enough here, then I can start to open. Like you said before, my heart's not going to open when I don't feel safe and comfortable and my needs aren't met and
Right.
right. That's not
Yeah.
happening. So like that's the first, last, and most important thing, that I can find a place within my soul instead of in my world. Like if I make my partner why I'm safe, or that I have enough locks on my door that I'm safe, or that there's enough food in the refrigerator that I'm safe, that can all go away. But if I can
Yeah.
find it inside, then it can't ever be taken. You know, the wolf can huff and puff and not blow my house down.
Girl, you got a brick house. I'd like to mention in particular, right? We're sort of talking about foundation, and what's important to keep in mind is that when we're children, our security and our value and the physiological needs, right? Air, water, food, shelter, sleep, all those things are provided by our parents, right?
Or not.
And if our parents aren't providing those things for us, then there are psychological books thick enough that describe all the things that can occur when your development isn't supported, right,
Yes.
by your parents. But what's interesting is that then we grow up and we leave home, but all too often our education doesn't include, now, how do you provide for your own physiological needs? How do you establish your own foundation for yourself, right? So it's fascinating to me that I read a study that if people would graduate from high school and get married before they had children and get a job, those are the only three things they have to do to prevent themselves from going into poverty and right, being stricken with difficulty in their lives. And those are pretty basic. That's foundationally basic. So just those three things can be a starting point, right, for someone taking care of your own physiological needs and accepting the responsibility for that, right? Accepting the responsibility for your physical body and for your physical needs of basic shelter and foundation. And one other thing I want to mention, which I love that you talked about, and that is you feeling safe in your body and you feeling connected to the earth, because people talk about being connected to the earth, but what does that really mean? And I'd just like to mention that being connected to the earth can include walking on the ground, swimming in water, right?
Yes.
Those are elements that affect us dramatically. And you can read studies and information on the internet about walking through the woods and all the benefits of that, right? But what is the truth? The truth is the same molecules that make up the earth, the carbon, the nitrogen, the oxygen, the hydrogen, those same elements make up our bodies. So we do have that in common. We have everything in common with the earth.
Yeah, and these bodies are made of earth and will return to the earth, and that's the facts as far as I'm concerned. And how do I stay comfortable with that? It's not by looking out there and saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to die," right? Because that's not comfortable. It's, "Oh, in here I'm okay and I'm safe and I belong and I'm part of the system," and finding that a way for that to be comfortable for me is really important, because otherwise I'm just ignoring it.
That's true. And what you resist persists. If you
Mhm.
ignore it, I put a little Instagram picture of a holly bush because yesterday I spent all day pruning and weeding and getting rid of all the hollies that keep popping up all over. Okay.
Mhm.
And hollies have very sharp, spiny leaves. So here's the thing, if I'm pruning a holly, I'm going to get scratched, right? I'm
Yeah.
going to get scratched. Everybody knows that. And it's fascinating to me that people allow themselves to entertain negative thoughts in their head, right? Fear, overwhelm, confusion, chaos, frustration, all those negative thoughts. They allow those thoughts to enter their head, and then they don't understand why they can't see any good in the world. It's the same thing, right? I'm pruning a holly bush, I'm going to get scratched. If I allow negative thoughts and if I allow um, depleting feelings in my life, then that's what's going to resonate, and the world will give me all the things I resonate with, because resonance is a natural pattern. How is it a natural pattern? And I'll explain it by this example. If we have two violins in a room and I play the violin and I strum the A string on one violin, the A string that I hadn't touched on the other violin also vibrates, right? So if you are feeling overwhelmed, everything that you see outside you in your environment is going to contribute or feel or add to the overwhelm, because it starts from the inside first. Yes?
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought up resonance, because that's what I wanted to say from the earlier thing that you were talking about around the way we're brought up matters so much. It sets the foundation. And for those of us who are fortunate enough to get enough safety and enough of our needs met and enough um, wellness, it's we have a really good start, and we can continue that resonance. We can continue that positive self-care, the positive emotional experience, positive thought patterns. It's easier. For those of us who haven't, it's harder. And it's very important to like look that in the eye and own it and
Yes.
say, oh, I grew up with not enough safety and not enough care and not enough listening and right, not enough. And the set point stays where it is
Yes.
unless we change it.
Yes, and
That's
this is a
why.
really great example, because it's just like the thermostat in your house. If
Yes.
you set your thermostat to 72, right? If you grew up and you didn't have enough safety growing up, that's your 72. And
Yes.
you'll always go back to 72 unless you get your hands on that thermostat dial and actually change
Yes.
it. And that's the work of the subconscious, right? We have to shift our subconscious programming. And you've got amazing tools to shift subconscious programming.
Thank you. So do you. And I call it the soul. And yeah, and the tools I teach in classes really help us get our hands on that, as far as I'm concerned. And a lot of the work I do one-on-one with people is just that, so that we can take on as adults the parenting of ourselves, which we all need to do. Who's taking care of us? Us. And if we're looking for somebody else to do it once we're adults, that gets us into trouble.
Well,
So
you can see all the people who do that, right? Who are looking for someone else to take care of them, right? It's the guys who go out and get those red sports cars at a certain point in time. It's the women who have to have the facelifts, right? What are they relying on?
painful.
Where are they looking for
It's so
safety,
painful.
security, and
It's so hard.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but like we can learn to parent ourselves. We can learn to play our own game instead of the game that we learned when we were young, or the game that's happening now that we don't like. We can play our own game and do our own thing and set the vibrations or set the thermostat where we would prefer it. And that's all so accessible. Like we don't hear that a lot, but I
No,
just
we
like
don't.
it's so accessible for us to allow ourselves to go from not experiencing safety to experiencing safety, not experiencing love to experiencing love, not experiencing being validated and mattering and that worthy, those kind of things, or shame, and not having so much shame. Like that's all right in our grasp. it takes something. It's not a minute. You can't just take a pill, unfortunately. If you could, I'd be rich.
Well, the pill, right? The pill is the work, right? The pill is
Well,
doing the work.
it's more like going to the gym than taking a pill, I think. But
Okay, and that's work too, right?
yeah.
The pill is going to
So,
the gym. The pill is doing
yeah,
it.
it's
Okay.
going to the gym, but
Yes,
it's
yes.
right there for us. And so I'm so glad you brought up resonance, because it's just so foundational to this conversation about foundations, because who gives us a firm foundation once we're adults? Us, together with, in our souls, together with, if we believe in divine help or whatever, right? It's like, that's our co-creation or our creation, not anybody else's job. And that's really hard, because a lot of us are thrown to want somebody else to do it.
Well, understand, we want someone else to do it because that's how we grew up, right?
Yeah.
We grew up as children relying on someone else to do it. And then we never got the, okay, now it's your turn training.
Right.
We never got the, now it's your responsibility. And so we just continue doing as we did like children. And we look for someone else. We look to someone else. And that's a perfect segue point to break, looking to someone else and say, I want to thank our sponsors. We are Historically for being a part of our show. Everyone, please show your support and give some love to our sponsors. We are Historically. This is the Live by Heart show. Thank you so much for coming back with us. And I hope you enjoyed the information and the message We Are Historically is providing to the world. And thanks also for your support of them. Wendy and I were talking about not having the love that you need, and then having the love that you need, getting the love that you need, giving it to yourself, not having security and having security. And this is all possible, but it's not a pill that you take. It's not popping it in the microwave and suddenly, boom, your popcorn is popped. This takes a decision, it takes some focus, and it takes practice. Should we talk about practice? Because when we're talking about something as important as foundation, and just the reminder, the first level in Maslow's hierarchy of need is physiological need. The second level is actual safety and a sense of safety. So it's personal security, it's having enough resources, it's being employed or having investments, right? It's your health. It might even be property. So how do we give ourselves the needs like safety? Like I'll just jump in and say, I had somebody tell me once that I was so lucky that I had a white picket fence life. That, right? I had a husband and I had 2 children, 2.4, whatever the number is, right? And I was staying at home and I was, right? They told me.
And you're thin with long hair.
Yes, and I'm thin with long hair and I'm a happy person and I have rose-colored glasses and I love life, right? And I looked at them and I said, okay, that's your perception and you don't know my story, right? And that reminded me of a woman who said, the story you think you know about someone is not their story, right? What you see is not their story.
So painful. It's so painful because, like, I know you well enough to know that's not the world you live in, right? You have this incredibly awesome life, but it's not perfect and it's not without challenge, just like mine, not perfect, not without challenge. And it's just like it's like dehumanizing someone to just say, oh, you're just this picture from a magazine that I think you have it all together.
Well, I think everybody has their own story. And I'm sorry, just a second here.
Oh, you're woofer.
Everybody has a story. And the thing is, when you want someone else's story, what does that say about you? Right? I'd like to give an example of pulling Boston ivy out of my yard, which I've been doing. Boston ivy has leaves, right? The leaves come up, and you grab a hold of those leaves, and the leaves are attached to a vine. So you grab the leaves, and then there's the vine, and you start pulling, right? And the vine goes around the tree and over the hill and around the corner, but you can't see that because that's all under the dirt and the other plants.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my God, these 5 little leaves are at the end of a 50-foot vine. So what's the truth? You're seeing, right, my leaves. You're seeing what I've created for myself, but you don't know how long my vine is. You don't know what it wraps around and where I came from and all the things that had to happen in order for you to see the snapshot of me today. And what's the little saying that they have? They say, an overnight success did not happen overnight, right? An overnight success happens for 20 years.
Yeah. They also say, don't compare my insides to your outsides.
Oh, I haven't heard that one. Let me think about that. Don't compare your insides to my outsides.
Yeah. I shouldn't compare my insides to your outsides. Because, you can fluff your hair and put makeup on, but like inside me, I'm dealing with shame and pain and challenge, as well as glory and beauty.
Okay, so explain that because, right, you said fluff my hair, but then you said inside you there's shame. Like, really explain what you mean by that in that example.
Just like, it's just so easy. Like the woman was saying, it's just like, you've got the, the white picket fence life. It's like, she has no idea what's going on inside of you.
I see. So she's just seeing the white picket fence, but I'm just not quite getting the what's inside her that my white picket fence is saying to her. What is my white picket fence saying to her insides?
Well, you've got it all together, or whatever it's saying. I don't know, but like, you've got it all together, and you're perfect and
I
beautiful,
see.
and she's not. But like, nobody is. It's the big fat
she's not
lie,
part,
and
right?
she's not.
Yeah,
Right? This is
that's
the
what you were
best thing
getting
I've
at.
learned working with people so intimately for 15 years. Like, I mean, down and dirty intimately. The best part, I think, in the long run is for me to really get how much crazy ass shit is going on out there. I'm like, shut, maybe I shouldn't say shit, but really, right?
You said it. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so what are you saying? All the stuff that's happening out there?
Yeah, there's so much like incredible, intense stuff that people are going through inside themselves or manifesting out into the world. Like, just really unexpected, wild stuff behind the white picket fences.
Oh, I see. So, I guess this is a great moment to say that, yeah, I tend to have a much more positive outlook on things. And I used to be less realistic. Like, my husband is the realism in our relationship. And it used to be, right, that I'd come home with some brilliant idea, what I thought was a brilliant idea. And I likened it to a big red balloon, right? I'd come home with this big red balloon and I'd say, what do you think of my big red balloon? And he'd say, that's not going to last very long. And then he'd pop it with a pin, right? And I'd be like, oh, but that's my balloon, right? And so what did I learn? I learned a couple of things, but I learned one, to hold on to my red balloon and not tell him about it for a couple of days so I could enjoy it, right? And then knowing he was going to just, say, well, that's not going to last very long. But also I began seeing how balloons don't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I had the misguided view that I was going to have this beautiful balloon for a really long time.
Oh.
And he was kind enough to say, well, yeah, it's a balloon. Right? Where I was just like, oh, it's so floaty and it's so red and I love it and it's got a string and it follows me, right? And he was more realistic. So I've been able to keep an optimistic perspective, but also see the picture more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's beneficial, right?
Yeah.
Being a realist and
Yes.
holding
I'm
optimism.
all about the realism personally. And I feel like that's the foundation to stand on of all foundations. And that's what I mean inside, although people might hear woo woo, but I hear let's stand in realism on the inside and also on the outside. Like what works in the world. And you were naming it, like having an income and having a place to live and making sure you have a stream of food and like actually saying hello to these things head on and handling them. That's reality.
I think the important piece of what you just said is handling them, because you have to be the safety and security and the foundation for yourself first.
Yeah, put on your own oxygen mask on first is one way to say it.
Right. Put on your mask first. So,
and yeah.
If somebody right now has lots of thoughts and they're fearful and they're overwhelmed and they're worried, name one little thing they could do to practice right now to put their oxygen mask on first.
Breathe.
Right?
Breathe.
Take a breath.
Consciously breathe. Exercise is really good. I mean, without going to tools or whatever. And here's the hard part, though, and I want to go back to those of us who were raised with less safety, because it sounds good to just go in and get safety, but it's not so easy if we haven't had it, if we didn't grow up with it.
It's true.
If we grow with unsafety, it's in the body. It's in the body, and as well as the soul, and so. Doing things to help care for the body, a warm bath, maybe with Epsom salts or something, like putting on moisturizer after the shower, the sweet little body care things, healthy eating, healthy exercise, healthy sleep, right? The basic body care can make such a difference. And breathing and whatever meditation works, yoga, whatever. But the idea is, for those of us who don't know what safety is yet, is to allow ourselves to circumambulate in toward it, because we can't go too fast because it's too scary for the body.
Yeah.
It's too scary, right? But we circumambulate gently in like a spiral, one step closer to being with ourselves at a time. It is a process. I just want to honor that. And not seem like it's all so easy all the time. It's not for some of us, and that's okay, but it's still our job and we can still do it. That
was beautiful. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thank
you.
I
think we should wrap it up there. If this message spoke to you, please tell us what's on your heart. You can leave us a comment, and for more information about how you can live by heart, go to livebyhearttoday.com. If you've got ideas for future shows, please write to us and let us know. And from my heart to yours, and until tomorrow, live by heart today.
And that concludes this portion of
Live by Heart Today!
Thank you for watching. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Thank you, We Are Storically, for making this show possible.